Hello and welcome. Ukraine is expanding its bridgehead over the Dnipro River. This and more in this situation report. The beheaded Ukrainian soldier that was beheaded live on camera while being alive is identified. His name was Serhiy Pataki, father of a 6-year-old daughter and father of a 1.5-year-old son. He was from the Hungarian minority that is living in the southwestern part of Ukraine. On the frontline developments in Ukraine, we have north of the Seversky Donetsk attacks that were driven forward against Neveske, against Terny and Torske. There's also reporting about fighting in the Serebryanska forest, but I cannot really confirm any change of territory in this region. South of the Seversky Donetsk, we have particularly heavy fighting in Orehovo-Vasilivka. There is report, and we actually see video. There's video in existence, which unfortunately I can't show you because of the corpses being visible, but there was a Ukrainian counterattack close to Bodanivka. As far as I see and as far as it was geolocalized, it was on this area here. The Ukrainians pushed the Russians back, actually successfully captured the position when the video ends. But Wargonzo, the pro-Russian military blog, the Mil blogger, claims that the attack was not successful. So in theory, they could have been pushed back later. I cannot confirm that anyways, but we have confirmation at least that for a moment, the Ukrainians took that position here and successfully conquered it. There was also a Russian attack on Holove itself, like the town that is along the river here. It was successful, but a Ukrainian counterattack pushed the Russians back again. And according to Wagner, positions of theirs were handed over to the Redat PMC. But the soldiers from them were fleeing the position, handing it over, allowing the Ukrainians to capture the territory afterwards itself. Prigozhin used that to attack what he calls micro PMCs, so fresh PMCs that are relatively small. He obviously sees them as a competition that will fight him over recruits and resources, so he wants to discredit them as much as he can as of now. Inside of Bakhmut, the Ukrainians are losing further ground. The Russians have not just taken the central train station, but they crossed it, and they crossed it significantly further. So the part of Bakhmut that is still under Ukrainian control is shrinking by the day and continuously shrinking though. So the Ukrainians have blown up a pontoon bridge close to Holove after the Russian attack on them. But the possibility, their option to still resupply the town should still be valid. But it would be to be expected that the Ukrainians will withdraw from the city in the next coming days, as their control of the city is slowly eroding, and they're probably now to 10 to 15% control of the city itself. What we can expect here is the Ukrainians more or less doing the delaying action, that they will do significant counterattacks to increase their control within Bakhmut seems increasingly unlikely. The speaker of the Eastern Command, Colonel Serhiy Cherevati, said Wagner is no longer capable of doing operations on their own. But he says they are now being assisted by VDV and special forces, and they are increasingly dependent on them, and those units are increasingly taken over from Wagner, which is eroded to a degree that it can no longer operate itself. We have JDAM use now finally confirmed in Ukraine. This is in Bakhmut, where JDAMs have hit a target here. And I think somewhere in the videos it's even visible how it comes down. There should be screenshots. Yeah, we have it here, where you can see it coming down itself. So JDAMs hitting positions. Now we have confirmation not only that they are in Ukraine, but they are being used by Ukraine. South of Bakhmut in Avdiivka, the fighting is also continuing. The Ukrainians say they defeated attacks on close to Novokalinove, Stepove, Siverne, and Pervomaiske. So here, here, and here. The Russians are saying they were successful at Kamyanka. I cannot confirm that as of yet, but the Russians are claiming this. And we have confirmed Russian successes south of Nevelske. In this area, there is video from the Donetsk people, so-called Donetsk People's Republic, where they capture a position here. So there is some advance by the Russians. Further south, at fighting around at Marinka is continuing, as well as Russian attacks on Novo-Mikhailivka. I cannot confirm that the Russians have achieved anything in this area. On the southern front, the Ukrainians are saying their counter-battery fire over the Dnipro is very successful. According to their own claims, they have big successes destroying enemy artillery, air defense, tanks, and armored vehicles. According to the speaker of the Southern Forces, Natalia Humenyuk, the Ukrainians are working on the preparation to clean the eastern bank of the Dnipro with artillery, basically taking out everything they can identify, working on it with artillery. There are reports that the Ukrainians are expanding their control over the Dnipro River. We have a picture here showing the other side with a Ukrainian flag. The reports are that the Ukrainians have taken over a lot of area in the both directly opposing of Kherson, as well as on the southern bank or on the eastern bank of the Dnipro, south of the Kakhovka town and of the Kakhovka Dam. But it has to be put somewhat in perspective. While it's technically a bridgehead, and while we can technically say they crossed the Dnipro, as they have crossed the river, and I hope the map will load in time. So they crossed the middle stream of the river. But if you look on the satellite pictures, which I hope are coming back, or are coming, okay, I'm giving up for now. The thing is, all of this here, and you can see to some degree, all of this here has rivers, canals, or anything like this. And this is the same in all those areas here, whether it's being shown on the map or not. If you look into the satellite pictures, basically everything I find where Ukrainian claims are that they've settled down is not purely, not technically on the other side of the river. It's probably in the meaning of the phrase, it's crossing the river, as the river is generally considered to be the center of the stream. And those are only sidearms. So they are on the other side of the Dnipro River, but it should not be misunderstood that it means they took swaths of land where they can now land tanks and continue. From what I see, everything they took is still at least divided by at least one more river, riverine, anything smaller, some smaller body of water from the rest of the Russian occupied territory, so that the Ukrainians can use this to advance further, to land tanks there and continue. Seems highly unlikely because of the situation there, but still, it is obviously of significant. It is still of some significance. The Ukrainians have also used a Rim2 ballistic missile, according to the Russians. They used it from southern Zaporizhzhia against the Crimean Bridge, but it was intercepted. Now, I found some analysis, some comments that said it was a test run to probe defenses or something. This seems extremely unlikely, because you would, by using Rim2 against the Kerch Bridge, they would demonstrate capability to the Russians, and they would forewarn the Russians. If the Ukrainians are actually able to do a significant attack on that, doing it without preparation, without forewarning, doing one big salvo would make a lot more sense. This now has demonstrated capability by the Ukrainians, which we would expect the Russians to investigate the air defenses, how capable they are, investigate whether the air defenses will withstand a bigger salvo, and if needed, add additional air defense for that. So So that this was kind of a probing attempt seems extremely unlikely. According to what I would guess is that this was a serious attempt to destroy the Kerch Bridge, but that the Ukrainians simply don't have enough of the systems ready to do a salvo that is able to saturate the Russian air defense. We should not forget that the Rim2 was only a prototype in 2021. So, and the degree to which the Ukrainians will be able to manufacture it during the war in significant number can obviously be doubted. So whether the Ukrainians will be able to send a full salvo of, let's say, 12 to 20 of those missiles anytime soon is up for question and can definitely be doubted. So according to what I would guess, this was a serious attempt to hit the Kerch Bridge, but it was not successful. But as I said, we will see what the future says if I'm wrong here in this regard, which is always possible, obviously. We have videos here of increased fortification work along the Dnipro River. We see the trenches being dug here. Interestingly, that the low amount of zigzagging going on here, which we see in a lot of the new trenches, which feel like they are done by people who don't have a full clue of a full understanding of how to set up trenches. We see connecting trenches, and as you can see, the classic zigzagging that we can see more or less here is not done in big areas of the other fortification, which is kind of surprising, but maybe there's a logical explanation for it after all that I'm just not aware of right away. And we have satellite imagery from Mariupol. This is before the war. This is, by the way, the drama theater in front of which the Ukrainians wrote that there are children inside, and this is from later than how it looked after the Russians attacked the city, to see the direct comparison of how the city has developed and how its infrastructure, its houses, etc. was destroyed during that war. Generally, to talk about what is currently happening on the front line, we can say that the attacks against the Russian logistics and infrastructure are visibly increasing. The attack with the Rim2 was probably a serious attempt to take out the Kerch Bridge again after that one successful attack last year. The crossing of the Dnipro, the main river, if you understand what I mean with this, can be seen in this context as well. What we are seeing right now is being called shaping the battlefield, the battle space. I'm convinced that this has already begun, that this is a sign of the Russian work, of the Ukrainian attempts to prepare the battlefield for a coming counteroffensive, which this should be understood that the Ukrainians try to change the situations along the front line with smaller means to allow the development of a further offensive. This means they take strategic positions without pressing forward the attack. They probe the front lines, they destroy strong points, they destroy infrastructure, they destroy weapons supply, and according to their successes and according to the intel gathering in the process, the decision will also be made where the attack is going on. Generally, the preparation of a Ukrainian counteroffensive is clearly on the way. It could be discussed that this is already the beginning of a counteroffensive, but that would be the topic of a different video to discuss to what degree and what we should be expecting for a coming Ukrainian counteroffensive. And coming back here to the bridgeheads over the Dnipro, we should not expect that this is the beginning of a massive invasion heading for the Isthmus of Perikop. For that, the infrastructure is not viable. But at the same time, it's like a festering injury on the Russian front. They can ignore it for now. It's not going to kill them. But if they keep ignoring it, it will allow the Ukrainians to exploit it. Now, those islands will not allow mechanized, or not easily allow a mechanized advance into the Russian rear of Kherson, into the lines of communication to the Crimea. But if they are not being taken out there, if they are being ignored there, if the Ukrainians are allowed to set up intelligence points there, drone stations, supply depots entrenched there, they can jump over to the next positions on the river. They can slowly advance further. They can keep probing to finally reach a point where an amphibious operation might actually be possible, also because it will allow the infiltration, which then can attack rear guard positions, not rear guard, positions in the rear that would help the Russians supply the front line in case of an amphibious attack. I would not consider what is currently happening the direct preparation of a solid river crossing, but if the Russians keep ignoring it, or if the Russians keep allowing the Ukrainians to advance further there, then it will open the option for something like this, at least somewhat in the future. On the Crimea, there was an attack with naval drones on the harbor of Sevastopol. The Russians are saying it was 3 drones and all of them were destroyed. It's unclear how successful that attack has been. And in partisan activity, we have reports that there was an IED attack in Oleshki, close to Kherson. An IED was blown up in a checkpoint, killing several Rosguardia troops and destroying materiel. No clear confirmation of that, though, of what was achieved by the Ukrainian partisans. We have a report here from the New York Times, according to which the prisoners are being told HIV positive prisoners are basically being offered, or have been offered in the past, effective medication against HIV by Wagner if they are joining Wagner. Basically, in prison, they are receiving ineffective medication that doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and Wagner instead was basically promising them either effective medication or a quick death instead of suffering long in a prison. The other issue that is coming to prisoners and their recruitment is that now they are being offered a salary. The saying is that it's equal to the volunteers, and the talk is of 205,000 rubles per month, so roughly $2,500. According to, in addition to that, they will receive 3 million rubles, that's $36,000 if they are wounded, and $5,061,000 if they are if they fall. This is showing that the recruitment of prisoners is obviously slacking. It's not according to what the Russian military is expecting. And obviously it will also cause further problems when fighters are being paid differently. Right now, contract soldiers are receiving 195,000 rubles, so more or less the same, even though it's supposedly 10,000 rubles less, but only if they are on the front line. Mobilized soldiers, on the other hand, receive the same, but anytime wherever they are being used. That is obviously already causing problems within the Russian military. And to hear that now not only volunteers will be paid, but also the criminals, and that they might get better pay than the Russian contract soldiers, must harm the morale of the Russian soldiers to a significant degree. And in that regard, it's probably fitting what the Ukrainian General Staff was reporting. According to them, in Stanitsia Luhanska, in Luhansk Oblast, there was a firefight between Russian armed forces and Wagner, in which both sides suffered losses, including fatalities. Trouble between this, the expectation of being treated differently, will cause problems in the midterm and in the long term for the Russian side that will definitely harm their morale. In the political sphere, we have reports that a Duma deputy of the party United Russia was demanding that the enemy of the state is being reintroduced, like in Stalin's times. At the same time, though, the Russian government doesn't seem to want to intensify its repression. A law that was supposedly raising the taxes from 15 to 30% for refugees, for people that have fled Russia, was stopped by the government. So Putin wants to keep the lid on too much repression, at least as of now. One of the Wagner fighters that was interviewed by Gulagu, which I mentioned in the last Situation report, was now arrested. But in full context of this, pro-Russian channels before that were spreading that the witness, was actually blackmailed by the founder of Gulagu, who had obtained a video of the witness being raped in a Russian prison. And according to the pro-Russian sources, he was threatened with the publication of the video unless he says that about Wagner, basically claiming that what the witness said in the Gulago interview is not true, is not the reality, that he was forced by the by Gulago to say that. And in after that, the video showing the rape was still being published. So claiming that after blackmailing them, they didn't even honor their blackmail after receiving what they wanted. According to reports, Greek wants to deliver 5 Leopards. It's unclear which type. I think they have Leopard 2A4 as well, but they definitely have Leopard 2A6. If I remember correctly, and Portugal wants to send 3 more Leopard 2A6 as well, at least according to reports. We also have reports that Slovenia has sent 20 AFVs, which type is unclear. They can be armed with various different weapons, including automatic grenade launchers, heavy machine guns, or autocannons. And we have video of Patriot system now being in Ukraine and being operational, which is obviously massively helpful for the Ukrainian side as their own stocks of air defense missiles is running low. And finally, we have a video of a new maritime drone that was introduced. Now, this is a semi-submersible. Obviously, we see a camera here on top. This is probably a antenna, but the body of it, as well as the warhead, is supposedly going under the water. Is going to be submerged, which will massively reduce the radar cross-section and should thus allow a more hidden approach, and will obviously also make it harder to fight it, as this will no longer be that easy to be destroyed with a machine gun from a helicopter or anything like this. That was it already from me for now. If you enjoy what I did, please hit the like button, leave a comment for the algorithm, or what do you think about the Ukrainian offensive? Do you think they will cross the Dnipro in force to try to reach the Perikop Isthmus? That really helps with the algorithm as well. If you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. And this channel is only possible because of the support from viewers like you. So thank you very much to everyone already supporting the channel. And if you do so, you can do so if you want to, you can do so by the means in the description. That's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.